Maloni and kia ora, and welcome to today's episode of The Link Up. We've got a wonderful guest in store for you guys. She hails from the lands of Tokelau and the Cook Islands, and she's a mother and a recent tertiary graduate. So yeah, without further ado, here is Nasstta.
Thank you, Shah, and thanks for having me on your podcast this morning.
So welcome.
Kia ora and maloni to all your viewers. My name is Nasstta, and as Shah mentioned earlier, I come from the Cook Islands and from Tokelau. My mum comes from Hakoho, which is in Tokelau, and my dad comes from Mangaia in the Cook Islands. I have there are five of us siblings. I have two older brothers and two younger sisters. I am smack bang in the middle, and I'm also the eldest daughter. So as you might know, it comes with its perks, but also its challenges.
Yeah, definitely.
I am also married to a handsome Samoan man. And I have two handsome boys to him, one who is 8 and the other who is 1. I'm actually not from Auckland, and don't come for me, but I do come from the beautiful city of Korero, from the creek to be exact, and that's where I did a lot of my school years, right up until I was about 18, 19. And then I went down to Dunedin to study at Otago.
Cool.
But prior to going to Otago, I did do a stint at Victoria University.
Okay, cool.
which was amazing, but also quite challenging. Only because I had initially signed up to go to Otago, and I was waiting for them to get back to me. And I hadn't heard from them.
Right.
And my parents were like, well, you need to do something. You can't just be sitting around at home. And as all good daughters do, I signed up to Victoria. And because all my friends were going there, I was like, oh, yeah, might as well. I mean, I've got my support crew. We're going to do this. We're going to smash it out. So I did the CUP course, which is a foundation course to get into uni.
Right, okay.
I didn't get all my credits at school, which is fine.
Different pathways.
Yeah. And so I went to Vic, and it was meant to be for 6 months, which was great for me, because then I was like, oh yeah, sweet, I'll get into uni and do my stuff. And while I was there, I didn't actually pass.
Okay. Great.
Which was great for my parents. No, it wasn't. So what had happened was I was cruising in that year.
Right.
Because I didn't actually know what I wanted to do.
Okay. And being as the title of this episode is The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah. I had nothing. I was just like, okay, get into uni. And then I didn't think of, okay, what are you going to do after you get
into uni?
Yeah. And then, so I didn't pass in that 6 months. And then
at Victoria
University. And then I got a letter from Otago University, and they were like, okay, cool, you're accepted to do the foundation course for first year health science.
Right.
Now, the backstory for health science, I thought that this was it for me. I was
what you wanted to do.
Yeah, because I grew up in the hospital, in that arena with my mum working at the hospital, and I loved being in that environment.
Right.
And I was like, okay,
you're going to be a doctor.
Yeah, it makes sense that because I love being in the hospital and being around this sort of lifestyle, I would be a doctor. So I went down to Dunedin.
Yeah.
I did the year of foundation study. And I didn't pass that.
Wow.
Yeah. And at that stage, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, what am I going to do now? Anybody would be like, okay, just give it a year.
Yeah.
No, I applied to go in to Otago University as a 20-year-old, because you know how you don't have to have your university entrance. and applied to get in. And I got in.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, cool. Maybe this is where we're supposed to go.
And this is where it's meant to start.
Yeah. And I did that year. I went back down, did the year. I failed. Like, we didn't even get to second semester, and I had already failed.
So that's 3 big whammies.
Yeah. And, like, I was thinking, girl, you had no business going down without your family to study, health science. Like, who do you think you are? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back and pursue anything else. Like, people were like, maybe there's another path. And I was like, no, this is it. I've already shut the door on studies.
Yeah.
I don't need to be here.
You're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
And in that year, which was 2009, I did get married.
Yeah.
And I'm still married.
Praise God.
Yeah, to this amazing man. But yeah, I was just like in limbo.
Right.
So I was...
Not very purposeful.
Yeah, so I got married in that year. In my first year of marriage, I had a job, but I didn't enjoy it.
Right.
And then I had to come back to Wellington because I was like, nothing's working. So I came back to Wellington to where my family are, and I worked with my dad. And I worked there for a couple of months, and then I moved to Auckland.
Right. Where your husband
Where
lived?
my husband was.
Yeah.
And even in that year, I was doing absolutely nothing. And I felt like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? There was no motivation. There was no drive. I was just doing nothing.
How did you feel about yourself during that time?
Man, I felt like useless because I was just like, you've got no vision. You've got no purpose. Why are you here?
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty tough time. And then I got a call from my dad who was like, if you're not doing anything, you might as well come back and work with me. And so that's what we did.
Okay.
So I went back down to Wellington and worked with him for 2 years. But even in that, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm not good for anything else.
Wow.
So I might as well just stay here. And I didn't have anything else beyond that.
Right.
And my parents were great because they were like, we just want you to, until you get your feet back, until you get back on your feet, we just want you just to work just until you figure out what you're going to do with your life.
Right.
And I stayed there because it was easy, because I became complacent.
Right.
And at the end of those 2 years, I actually fell pregnant.
Okay.
And that was unexpected.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, now we're pregnant.
Yeah. Something's going to change.
Something needs to change.
Right.
And because my husband was living in Auckland, we're also like...
So you're commuting between cities.
And we had to figure out like what we were actually going to do. And so I ended up moving back to Auckland.
Okay.
I finished up 2 weeks before I was due.
Right.
And then I moved.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So I finished up the job 2 weeks before I was due. And then I moved up a week before I was due. So it was like, that was a massive rush. And I wouldn't recommend anyone doing that. Because it was stressful.
Yeah, especially when you're meant to be nesting.
Yeah. So, like, I didn't have that time to nest. So I don't actually know what that feels or looks like. But that's okay. But, yeah, that was a really interesting time for me. And even in that space, even though I found out that I was pregnant and I knew that something had to change, I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah. And so do you feel like you were still in limbo and didn't quite have direction or purpose still?
Yeah. And so for that period, I was a stay-at-home mum. And it was great because, like we were talking about it before, it was kind of like my training ground for when I went into teacher aiding.
Right.
And And because it taught me a lot of patience. It taught me...
Becoming a mum?
Becoming a mum, yeah, sorry. Becoming a mum taught me a lot of patience. It also taught me who I was becoming as a mother. It gave me that, wanting to nurture, that passion to want to nurture my child in all aspects and making sure that he had the best of the best in terms of his upbringing. And because now if you meet him, he's confident, really, really confident. And I love that about him.
He is such a precocious little boy.
I'm just like, where'd you get that from? Because mummy's not that way inclined at all. But yeah, so that taught me a lot. And then I applied after my year stint of being at home with him. I applied to become a teacher aide at a local school.
Okay.
And at first I was like, teacher aiding? Like, do you really think you're going to be able to nail this?
Was this your inner monologue?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and these were things that, speeches that I had to battle with, like the self-doubt, like you're not worth anything, all these things.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, that I had to battle with.
Right.
And then when I actually got the job, because when I went into the interview, I was like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really bad at this kind of stuff, but they seem to like me. And I was like, and they gave me the job that day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
that would have been such a boost. Confidence boost.
I was like, okay, I'm good at something, guys. Yeah, we're winning here. And then I started my journey as a teacher aide, and it was great, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, I could be happy just doing this.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad it didn't stay there, but
yes.
Yay.
And so it was funny because while I was there, one of the teachers, the head teacher that was there at the time, I was only there for like not even 5 months.
Right.
And she was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, what do you mean? I need a job. I need some money. Like, I'm here to work. And she was like, no, like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. You should actually go and study, get some sort of degree, like a teaching degree. And I was like, I always seen the same person. Do you realize that I actually came from studying and I don't want to go back there again because I didn't want to fail?
Yeah.
And she was like, no, really, you shouldn't be here. You should actually go and do a teaching degree. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I brushed it off. And then she came back like a year after I had been there and she was like, so how old's your child? You know, by the time that you finish this degree, your child will be in school and you'll be able to go and do your teaching.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're funny. You're so funny. She's like, no, I'm being serious.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I mean, I loved that she saw that.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see it.
Right. And we really do need those people, those types of people in our tribe who can actually see us when we can't.
Yeah, that's so true. And so it was like I had time to mull it over, like 2 years to mull it over. And I was like, okay, I really had to pray about it because I was battling. Like, I failed in studying and I didn't want to go there again.
Yeah, that would have been painful as well.
And so I really had to take it to prayer because I was like, okay, Lord, if this is in your will for me to go back and study and do this particular degree, then I'll do it. And I said, but this, and this has to open up for me to go back and do it.
Right.
And so at the end of 2018, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm sending in my application. This is it.
Yeah.
I need to get past this interview.
Yeah.
And I need to get my foot in the door.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, then I know that that's a shut door.
Yeah. Right.
And then I got it.
Wow.
And so I got my acceptance letter at the end of 2018 for 2019 to start my Bachelor of Education.
Amazing.
And we did it.
You did it. And I think, which Nasstta won't say about herself, but she maintained an 8-point grade average throughout her whole degree.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. For me to get that, especially my first A, I was like, okay, I do have some potential.
Yeah.
I am able to do this. And so as soon as I got there, from then on, I was like, I can't go any lower than this.
Yeah.
Anything less than this is not excellence for me.
Yeah.
And so that was my thought process right throughout.
Yeah. Wow.
Right throughout uni.
And obviously the experience of having failed 3 times previously and in such a harsh way, very character building, I should say, to be in a place where you could see the excellence that you wanted to carry on throughout your journey. How did that make you feel?
I felt like I could accomplish all things.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I could see the end of the tunnel because with all the previous ones, because I had no purpose, because I didn't know what I was doing, there was no light at the end of the tunnel for me. And so when I got this A, I could see that day where I crossed the graduation stage. And that was mana enhancing for me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. The topic of today's episode is the purpose-driven life. What is purpose to you?
Purpose for me, so it's my why. It's what purpose is, why I do things. And when I actually applied to study at the university that I went to, it was funny because initially I didn't have, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my teaching degree and whatever job comes after that, then that would be great.
Right.
But when I actually applied, I applied with a particular school in mind.
Right.
Which was great because that's the school I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, wow, Lord, how cool would it be to go back to this particular school and teach students who are like me?
Yeah.
And that was my why, is because I wanted to do it for our Pacifica students.
Yeah.
I wanted them to see that they can achieve all things if they just do the work, and that they're able to do it, and that they need somebody who can awhi them in that area, like I needed that. They need to see somebody who sees potential in them, who can see that they are able to strive for bigger and better things.
Yeah, and speak life into them.
And I wanted to go back to my community and serve them the way they served me.
Wow.
So
amazing.
And it's great because I'm actually going back to that school.
Wow.
I got offered a job there.
Amazing.
And,
so the dream and the why has now become a reality.
Yeah.
That's really full circle.
Yeah. And honestly, by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think that I could do it. But he saw that potential in me and just put people around me to awhi me into that.
Absolutely.
Into that space,
and I think even as really close friends, we've been aware of each other's journeys and we've been in each other's corners, championing each other on.
Yes.
And it was your graduation day is one of my favorite memories because to not only see how proud everyone was, your family, your friends, your tribe, your support networks, it was also amazing seeing the dream and heartfelt desire of someone you're really close to become a reality and realize that through them being on this journey, you're able to see them light up and find purpose and find strength to become the person they wanted to become.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm so proud of you because to have watched you throughout this whole journey, I've just been like, go Nass!
And that's been it, eh?
Although I loved your dad's speech at your graduation where he was like, it was so great that you got your Bachelor of Education, and then he was like, but I need you to do your Master's. I was like, Dad, you go.
I was like, thank you so much for that, Dad. Can we just...
They're like, quickly, let's go. Move on to the next prison.
But that was it. Like, for my family to see it come full circle. They saw me go into uni. They saw me go through that failure phase. And then for them to see me actually complete it and cross the stage at the end.
That would have been amazing.
It was. And just when I told them that I was graduating, they were just like, oh my gosh, Nass, that's so good. And not only for them, but for their kids to see as well. And it was great that my nieces and nephews were able to come and witness.
I love that your entire family came up from Porirua to Auckland.
So it was a big thing, not just for me, but for them as well.
Absolutely.
And that me graduating was a celebration of them as well. And the people in my life, everybody. So it was such a great time, and I'm so just thankful that we got there.
Awesome. That's so wonderful. Okay, so we're going to change tangents a little bit, still talking about purpose, but I also know you're a mother as well to two very handsome, cute boys. And I would really like to delve into your journey of motherhood, the joys, the challenges, and everything in between. But I think it would be really cool to, I guess, understand purpose or your why in becoming a mother.
Yeah, sure. So when I fell pregnant the first time with my 8-year-old, I was excited, but I was also really scared.
Right.
Because I felt like I was too young. I felt like I didn't have it all together in terms of finances, in terms of a proper job, a secure job, or a house, where a space that we could call home. And so all these thoughts were going through my mind, and
but you had also been married a number of years by now, eh?
So we had our 8-year-old, we in our 4th year of marriage, and that was tough because we were also living apart.
Right. So doing the city commute still. Okay.
Like we would still be seeing each other, and so we had to decide from there what we were going to do, and that's when I decided to come up to Auckland.
Right.
But in that time, I was just like, okay, you know that you're getting yourself ready for another person, another being that you're fully going to be responsible for. And you can't give them back like you can give your nieces and nephews back after 2 nights. And so I was like, okay, what are we doing? How are we gonna do this? How are we gonna take care of this child? And like, it was great that I was getting advice from heaps of different people about the processes, and I was reading up books about how this was going to work and what this was going to look like. But as soon as he came, those were all out the gate.
Right.
Like, what they were telling me
didn't apply to your situation.
It didn't, because you can prepare yourself. This is just for me. You can prepare yourself for all of these things, but as soon as they come, it's a completely different. It's a new book. That you're writing yourself. Really. And so I had to learn how to navigate that space and what that was going to look like. And it was helpful because I had a lot of family members come around. Right. Which was great for me because then I felt like I wasn't doing this
Alone.
And you need your village to come and offer you and being a first-time mum. Because there were times where I was like, I want to throw in the towel. I want to give him back, but where do I give him back to? Because it scared me.
Yeah. And do you mean by scared as in you felt like you were going to fail this child?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because...
And you're like, someone else needs to be responsible.
Yeah. Because you've got to keep them alive. Do you know what I mean? He's been a great kid.
Yeah.
When he was... Especially when he was younger. Like, I'll just see the way he would develop. And if he knew that something was off with me, he would come up to me and be like, Mummy, are you okay? And I'd be like... You're a child. You got no business. How I'm feeling right now. But that's all I needed.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, okay, let's go. And carry on. And I'll be like, oh, okay, so I'm not allowed to be in my feelings or feel this. That's cool. Let's go, carry on and do life. But that's just the kind of kid he was.
It built resilience and strength within you.
And so I was like, okay, thank you. Because I needed that.
Yeah. And he's very much like that, where he's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, because life carries on.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. So I was just like, I'm so glad that I learned this.
I mean, he's such a joy to me, like being around him. When I'm around him, he makes me crack up so much, and he's such an inquisitive kid.
Yes, he is. He has the questions of doom where I'm like, can you just go Google it like you Google all your other questions that you have? But yeah, and now that I have a 1-year-old who recently just turned 1, I'm like, okay, I can like relax a little bit with this one, because my 8-year-old was my training ground for this one. Yeah. And he is just a whole different
kettle of fish.
Yeah, kettle of fish, which is great, because now I'm like, okay, I can't apply the same things that I did to my first one.
Yeah.
I've got to awhi him and nurture him in a different way.
Yeah.
Which has been great, because I'm still learning what that looks like for myself. And
your second child has stares of doom.
Yeah.
He cracks me up, that one.
He's got hard hands. So he'll probably be our boxer, which I'm...
Yeah. Being as I felt one of those wallops in my face, I can definitely attest to him being a boxer.
Yeah. So, yeah. And my older one, he's been great.
And he's so soft.
Yeah. In terms of being the older brother.
Yeah.
And wanting to take him off my hands, even though he's this little 8-year-old, being like, Mum, don't worry, I've got him. I'm like, no, you don't, but thank you so much. But yeah, he's just been great in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's to see the different personalities coming through between the two is a whole new learning curve for me. Because like I said, you do have to adjust the way you nurture the two of them. Yeah. It's not the same.
And in terms of purpose and your why for your 2 sons, what are some of your hopes and dreams for them that continues to push you to live purposefully?
Yeah. So now that I can say that I've graduated, my big thing for me was to show them that they could do these things, that they are able to do whatever they want to do. My whole thing for my boys is that I want them to be grounded. I want them to know who they are first and foremost. I want them to know who their God is, who they are in Christ. I want them to be bold, to be confident, and I'm glad that that's happening with my 8-year-old, because he is bold.
He very much so.
And he is confident.
Bold, borderlining bot. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I love to see it, because I was not that kid. Like, I was, but not to his degree.
Yeah, and because he will catch me out sometimes. And I'm just like... What? Where did this come from? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, so that's my I want them to be able to just go out there and be so confident in themselves and who they are and whose they are that they're able to do bigger and greater things more than I had the opportunity to do.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So in terms of your motherhood journey, you've been a working mum, a stay-at-home mum, and even a studying mum.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a journey. Yeah. And you're currently still a stay-at-home mum who's going to be embarking on being a working mum again. What was that whole period like through all those transitions of being in different seasons as a mother?
So with going back into work after having my first baby, I was kind of scared because I still wanted to be that person that nurtured my baby.
Right.
And daycare wasn't an option. It just wasn't an option for me. And so I was able to ask my in-laws to take, if they could for a period, take care of my son.
Right.
And they were able to do that for me.
Wow.
And I was so happy that they could, because when I spoke to my husband about what we were going to do with my son, when I went back to work, I told him straight off the bat that daycare wasn't an option, and he was just like, why don't we ask family if they can? And I was just like, oh yeah, true.
You're like, what's that an option? Okay.
It's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And so for him to be like, you know, we got other people, it just reminded me that actually we do have this massive village.
That you're not alone.
Yeah, that we can take our baby to. And so that was great, because then it alleviated all the stress that I was feeling going back into work and not having to worry about that.
And knowing that he would be safe.
Yeah, and that was like, I needed to know that he was going to be safe, and he was. Yeah. So that was great for me as a mother. And then when I went into study, we're going back down to one income.
Right.
And so I was like, we had this talk again with my husband, and he was saying, that's fine, you know, that we're going to sort this out. Yeah. And I was like, really? But we're going back down to one income. And he's like, it's okay, we're going to sort it out. And being the great man that he is, he alleviated all the financial stress off of me.
Yeah.
So, and I think that comes from a place of privilege, because I know that a lot of other families or mothers aren't afforded the same things that I was able. So for the 3 years that I was studying, my husband was covering us financially. So he was covering our bills, he was covering my food, he was covering
all the things, the babies.
Yeah, he just had all of that.
Yeah.
And he was like, you focus on your study and what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because he understood that it was just for a season.
And I think even for myself, having witnessed that and being around you guys, it was really empowering to see you guys' dynamics and to see, like, he really did provide and protect, and to see you in such a safe space that it allowed you to thrive.
Yeah.
And that was such a privilege to see.
Yeah.
And it really endeared me towards him a lot more, you know. Yeah. So I take my hat off to your hubby. He gets props for those ones.
He did such an amazing job. And I wouldn't have been able to go back into study had he not been like, I've got you covered. Yeah. Like, you know. And even while I was studying, because I still had my eldest son that I still had to take to school and stuff, on the days off that I did have off, I would be looking after him and taking him to. But the days that I couldn't, my in-laws came and covered for me.
Right.
They came and did the whole looking
Amazing.
after, making sure that he went to school, because
Yeah.
my second year of study he went to school, making sure that he was okay. And if my husband could, when he had his days off, he would do the same. So in all that time, I had people, my family, who were covering us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that village was such an amazing, it's
Yeah.
an amazing thing to be able to have a village that can do that.
And in terms of your why and even just purpose, how have those experiences shaped you in the way that you are who you are now?
It's allowed me, and it's given me the opportunity to be able to decide whether or not I want to work, because my husband is in this great job where he is able to support us financially. And that is a privilege, because I know that not everyone is afforded the same privilege. But for him to be like, it's okay if you do or don't.
Yeah. I remember him saying to you, like, you could go back to study and get your master's if you wanted to, or you could start working.
Yeah, and I love that.
Yeah.
That I have this option open for me, and that he's supporting me 100%. I'm also, and what that looks like for me and my children, it means that I can be around them as well. But the reason why I do stuff is so that, especially with this teaching degree and where I'm going with this, is so that my sons are able to say, okay, Mum was able to do this with 2 kids, with her 2 boys. And they, just as much as I was on this journey of teaching, they were on it too.
With you.
Yeah. Because I remember my older son, whenever I was studying, he would come into the room and be like, oh, Mummy's studying. I'll come and ask you later.
Wow. Yeah.
And those are privileges that not everybody has, because kids can be quite demanding. And for him, he knew when Mummy was in her room studying not to disturb me.
Yeah.
And that he could come back at a later time.
Yeah. And I remember you saying he'd occupy himself quite well, where he'd build stuff, he'd be drawing stuff, and I've even had a few of his drawings for me, because I call them my buttercups.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have such a good relationship with him, but I have seen where he actually is quite an inquisitive child who likes to seek out things for himself. So, because he's not so demanding of your time, that would have allowed you to actually be able to go on this journey as well.
Yeah, and because I want my kids to be able to be independent as well, and not be scared to ask even the hard questions.
Right.
And that's what he does. He does ask the hard questions, the whys and the why nots, and but also during that time, it was important while I was studying that I had my family around, my wider family, my in-laws, because they did a lot of the raising as well. It wasn't just me.
Yeah, took a village.
Yeah, it really did. And my son is the product of that village.
Yeah.
And me being able to finish this degree is a product of that village.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was never a me. It's all about me. It was always, it's to enhance and to build up what the village gave to me.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's so much purpose in bettering yourself, but the betterment of self is actually for the betterment of all.
And that's it, because if I succeed, if the one person succeeds, then everybody else in the village succeeds because of it.
Yeah.
Because they're part of that.
Right.
Yeah, and like growing up, when I was younger, I had a village behind me, my Cook Island village, my Tokelau village. They all had a part to play in the way I grew.
Right.
I grew up and the way I knew of stuff culturally, because being that I'm from the Cook Islands and from Tokelau, they're two very different things.
Right.
They bring two very different aspects of their cultures. And I grew up a lot with my Tokelau side.
Right.
Because my mum was head honcho.
Yeah. In the family.
Yeah. So
she was the boss.
Yeah, she was the boss. So anything she said, that was it. Like, nobody was going to argue with that. Yeah. Not even Dad. So if we had to go and do stuff to do with her family, we had to go and do it. Yeah. And we knew the roles that we played in those.
Right.
Because we grew up around it.
Yeah. And
so when I would go to my Cook Island side,
right.
It was very different. I felt like more of an observer.
Okay.
In that space.
Okay.
Not so much now, but when I was growing up, I felt like an observer because I grew up with my Toke side. That's all I knew.
Right.
And then going to my dad's family things.
It was foreign?
Yeah. In a sense. In a sense it was foreign.
And how has that tied into your story of purpose and to your why and into how you present yourself?
When I graduated, my dad's sisters, who are Cook Island, they did something for me.
Wow.
And and it was very, what was it? It was just full of love, if I can say that.
Full of aroha?
Yeah. Does
it make you emotional thinking about it?
It's just because I knew it wasn't just my degree. Yeah. It was everybody's.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've spoken about a purpose-driven life, and we've talked about your whys, and I guess the journey of motherhood that you've taken as well. I guess in terms of, before we wrap up, do you have some final thoughts on that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, if you're itching to go back and study, but because you're having these intrusive thoughts, don't listen to that. Don't listen to the naysayers, because you've got more people on your team than you think you do. And it'll just take that one person to be like, you actually got potential. You can actually do more than what you're doing now. Don't settle for the second best. Yeah. Like, go for the excellence. Yeah. Go for the higher degree. Wherever it is, whatever it is. Just do it. Just start.
Amazing. That's awesome, Nass. I think for me, in terms of my final thoughts around purpose and my why, like, it's been so empowering and uplifting hearing your journey and your story today. And I am so glad. I know that as the future unfolds, we'll totally be in each other's corners, repping and propping each other up. But I think for me, even this is part of my why. Running this podcast, doing this podcast where we allow women and their lived realities and their lived experience come on and give them a platform to share the things that are on their heart. This is purposeful too, because we all get to learn and exchange knowledge and share knowledge so that we can all grow together. And I really love that for me, my why a lot of the time comes down to what I'm able to give back. And being able to give back to all those who have given to me, to all those who have seen me through the good, the bad, and the extremely ugly. It's nice to see where God has put me now, and to see all of this thing come together, all of the things come together in a beautiful collision of all these different spaces and worlds. But I'm really grateful for it, and it feels very purposeful because it's about others. And I think that's it, really, isn't it?
It's about inspiring and motivating the next generation, especially.
Totally.
Well, that is for me.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. And man, that was a great conversation, a very intense, emotional one. But thank you so much, Nasstta, for coming on. Thank you for sharing your cultural perspectives, your journey of motherhood, even your journey of finding purpose and figuring out the where to. And I love that our stories are still unfolding and there's still so much more in store. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. So that's our episode for today. If you guys have any questions or any topics you'd like us to discuss, just email us at info@thelinkup.co.nz or message us on TikTok or Instagram. Otherwise, we will see you later. Bye.